In this lecture, we're going to talk about the powerhouses of the cell. The mitochondria, see all those little red things, and the chloroplast, the green things. I'm going to be breaking it down so that we can look at both the chloroplast and the mitochondria and see what they do for the cell and where they came from, which is really cool because they have their own DNA, they have two membranes, and in actuality they used to be their own cells. So they used to be symbiotic creatures living outside of our cells. Now they're living inside of our cells, and they are organelles for us that make energy, extra energy. Actually, not even extra energy. If we didn't have them, we would die. So energy that we need to survive. So here's the endosymbiote model, or the endosymbiote theory. So remember, again, when we say theory, a lot of people have done a lot of work and found a lot of support for this idea. So the idea is that the one cell long time ago ate another cell, consumed it, and instead of destroying it, instead of breaking down the cell that it had swallowed, they lived together. And the one little cell that had been swallowed had made more energy for the cell that had swallowed it. And eventually, over long periods of time, that little cell that had been swallowed became the mitochondria. And for photosynthetic organisms like plants, this actually happened a second time after the mitochondria, and they did it for the chloroplast. Some ideas or some observations that support this theory are that both the mitochondria and the chloroplast have two membranes. So when they were swallowed up, part of the membrane from the original cell came with them. Another is that we can look at primitive eukaryotes that don't have mitochondria, and they actually have symbiotic relationships with bacteria, and those bacteria actually work just like mitochondria. And then finally, the other thing that's really cool is that both mitochondria and chloroplast have their own DNA. They make their own proteins. They are specifically for making energy for the cell. So all of the things, all of the functions that they do, they make their own proteins for them. One of the consequences of this is kind of cool because the mitochondria actually is just inherited in humans through your mother. And so if you want to try to find the mother of a baby who was lost, or maybe they had some baby switching at birth or whatever, you can look at mitochondrial DNA and easily identify the mother. So these, as I said before, are the mitochondria. You notice the cell has multiple mitochondria, and depending on what kind of cell it is, it may have more mitochondria, like your muscle cells. Lots of mitochondria, or it may have fewer mitochondria. Actuality, sperm cells only have about 2 mitochondria because they just gotta go, and there's not really much left to it. They have, here's the cutaway of the mitochondria so that you can see inside that they actually do have 2 membranes. You see inside, and those little foldings are called cristae, and that's actually important to how they function and how they make ATP for us. Remember, again, ATP is the thing that we couldn't survive without. It's like cellular gasoline. Sugar is like our oil. We can't really put that in our car and make it go. We can't put it in our bodies and make it go. But once it's inside the cell, you can turn it into gasoline. That's what these things are, like little refineries, so that your cells can have that ATP energy, which is what they use to run. So just exactly what does the mitochondria do for us? Well, number one, all cells, all eukaryotic cells, I should say, have mitochondria. Prokaryotic cells do not, because they don't have organelles, remember. This is the organelle where you use oxygen and sugars to make energy for you, to turn that energy into ATP, which is the cellular gasoline. Cells can use ATP for energy. They can't use glucose. So this is where all of those bodily processes like breathing, respiration comes from. We breathe in oxygen. we breathe out carbon dioxide? Because the mitochondria are using that to make energy for your body. They're using the oxygen, carbon dioxide is waste product, and ATP is what fuels you. You wouldn't live for more than a few seconds without it. And this is just a picture from your book of the mitochondria. On your left side, you see the artist's drawing of it. On the right side, you see an actual picture taken with an electron microscope. Now, that's not a microscope that we can have in the lab. It's a great big one that we might find at UF. And it takes pictures of teeny tiny things. So you couldn't see things like the inner membrane with a light microscope that you're used to using. You can only do it with a special kind of microscope, and you can see all the little infoldings. It has two membranes. I don't think they really show you where the DNA is, but it's in there. Okay, so here's the plant cell, and if you notice, it has mitochondria too, something that I did want to point out. See, and they even have the cutaways here. So they originated from a cell that looked like this, which is very much like our own, but then they had another funky thing. They said, ooh, it's so wonderful to have these mitochondria, these bacteria inside of us making energy for us, that we're going to try it again. And they consumed another bacteria that happened to be photosynthetic, and it not only made energy for them, but they could take in sunlight and make their own energy, make their own sugars, which then go into the mitochondria to make, that's right, ATP for you and me. Okay, so these chloroplasts are very similar. They're different in other ways, but they've got two membranes. They've got their own DNA. I think that's what that white part is supposed to be showing you. And they make energy for the plant. Okay, they use the solar energy to make sugars, which the mitochondria can use to make, remember, cellular gasoline, ATP. So, you got it. That's the chloroplast, plant cells, and we're out of here. Now, the chloroplast is the organelle in plant cells where photosynthesis takes place. Chlorophyll is green. That is why plants are green. It uses this chlorophyll as a solar panel. So to take in energy from the sun, it uses carbon dioxide to make sugars for the plants. And its waste product, its byproduct is oxygen. So you've heard before that plants take in carbon dioxide, they give off oxygen. They do this when they are photosynthesizing. So any place you see that's green, probably in a plant, is photosynthesizing. This is what's happening. The carbon gets turned into sugars, which we're going to talk about because sugars have carbons in them. That's where the carbon's coming from. And it's very important in terms of the greenhouse gases and making sure we have a balance up there keeping us warm, and the other part of it coming down to us and being available as food. So these are very, very important organelles for us. They're very, very important for the plants, and they're very, very cool little energy machines. And again, this is a picture from your book of the chloroplasts. The one on top is what the artist picture is picturing. You can see, again, there's multiple membranes in there. The stacks are called grana, and you can see that they are green. This is where the chloroplasts are. This is where the chlorophyll is. This is where they're taking in the energy to make glucose, sugars for the cell. And then on the bottom is the electron microscope picture, and you can see the little stacks. Those are the darkened areas. And that's it for our cool, they used to be their own cells and now they're part of ours lecture. And we'll go on to the next lecture in just a few minutes when you're ready. Bye.